Welcome back to the channel where we explore the stories that haunt the airwaves and linger in the shadows. Tonight, we're tuning into a tale from the Emerald City. A story that will make you question what you hear when you think no one is broadcasting. Let's travel back to Seattle, Washington, on a cold, rainy night, March 12, 2014. The time is 1:13 a.m. For the night owls and insomniacs of Seattle, the voice of local radio DJ, Alistair Finch, was a familiar comfort. His late-night show, Emerald City After Dark on KWAV Radio, was a mix of smooth jazz, poetry, and Alistair's own soothing, almost hypnotic monologues about the city's hidden history. He had a voice like aged whiskey, warm, deep, and with a hint of melancholy. On this particular night, however, his broadcast took a turn no one could have anticipated. He was in the middle of a story about the city's old underground tunnels when his voice began to falter. Listeners heard a faint cough, then a longer, more strained one. Alistair tried to continue, his words becoming slurred and weak. And down there, he rasped, in the dark. You can still hear the echoes. His next words were just a gasp, followed by a heavy thud. Then, silence. For a full minute, the only thing coming through the speakers was static. The station's emergency broadcast system didn't kick in. There was no music, no pre-recorded message, just dead air. Concerned listeners started calling the station, and then 911. Paramedics arrived at the KWAV studio to find the tragic scene. Alistair Finch was slumped over his console, the microphone still live. He was pronounced dead at the scene from a sudden, massive heart attack. The official time of death was recorded as 1:13 a.m. A sad end to a beloved local personality. The station went off the air for the rest of the night as a sign of respect. Or so everyone thought. This is where the story gets strange. The very next night, several people living in the more remote areas surrounding Seattle, places with spotty reception, began calling the police. They all reported the same bizarre thing. They were hearing Alistair Finch's voice on the radio. They swore it was him, on the same KWAV frequency, broadcasting just like he always had. They described his voice as sounding distant, a bit distorted, but unmistakably his. The police dismissed these calls as a hoax, or perhaps a pre-recorded tribute that the station was running. But KWAV confirmed they were completely off the air. There were no tribute broadcasts, no old tapes playing. Their transmitter was cold. The reports continued into the second night, and they grew more unsettling. The listeners who could pick up this phantom broadcast claimed Alistair wasn't playing jazz or reading poetry anymore. He was talking, just talking. He was describing events that were about to happen. He announced a multi-car pileup on the I-5 bridge 20 minutes before it occurred. He described a house fire in the Ballard neighborhood, detailing the address and the cause, an hour before the first flames were spotted. It was like he had become a spectral town crier, announcing future tragedies with that same calm, melancholic tone. Authorities were baffled. Technicians from the station went to the transmitter tower, a lonely structure on a hill outside the city. They found nothing out of the ordinary. Everything was powered down, locked up tight. Yet, the calls kept coming in, each one more frantic than the last. People were scared. This wasn't a comforting late-night show anymore. It was a prophecy of doom. The phantom broadcast was only audible in certain pockets, creating a sense of isolation and disbelief among those who could hear it. Were they going crazy? Or were they tuning into something not of this world? The third night came, March 15th. The number of people claiming to hear the broadcast mysteriously grew. It was as if the signal was getting stronger, bleeding through the static. And on this night, the content changed once again. Alistair's voice, now clearer than ever, stopped predicting public disasters. He started speaking about individuals. He began to list names. Sarah Jenkins. His voice echoed through a car stereo on a deserted road. A terrible fall. The next morning, a woman named Sarah Jenkins was found dead at the bottom of a staircase in her home. Michael Chen. Alistair's voice whispered from a bedside clock radio. A faulty wire. A man named Michael Chen died in an electrical fire at his workshop. Panic began to set in. The names Alistair was reading were not random. They were the names of his listeners, people who had called into his show over the years, people who had sent him letters, people who were part of the Emerald City After Dark family. He was going through his audience, one by one, announcing their imminent and untimely deaths. It was a death list, broadcast from beyond the grave. The media caught wind of the story, but it was too bizarre to report as fact. It was relegated to the fringes, a ghost story, an urban legend in the making. But for those who could hear the broadcast, the legend was terrifyingly real. And then came the final broadcast. On the seventh night after his death, Alistair's voice returned one last time. But he wasn't reading a list of other people's names anymore. This time, he spoke directly to the person listening. Imagine you're one of them. You've been following this story, half believing, half skeptical. You tune in, searching the static, and suddenly, you hear it. Alistair's voice, and he says your name. He says, your asterisk name. And then, he describes, in his calm, unhurried way, exactly how your life is going to end. According to the legend, after that final, personal prophecy, the broadcast simply faded away for good, dissolving back into the static from which it came. No one ever heard from Alistair Finch again. The KWOV station was eventually sold and its frequency changed. But the story remains, a chilling piece of Seattle folklore. It serves as a haunting reminder that sometimes, the most terrifying sounds are the ones we hear in the silence. It makes you wonder what lingers in the frequencies we can't quite tune into. As Alistair himself might have said, dead air isn't always silent. What do you think? Was it mass hysteria fueled by grief, a cruel, elaborate hoax? Or did a beloved radio DJ find a way to make one final, horrifying broadcast from the other side? Let me know your theories down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this dive into the unknown, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more strange stories. Stay safe out there, and maybe stick to a playlist tonight.